Um, so I want to start in the tour in the Beit Yosef, in the tour in the Beit Yosef. So even though I signed the Gemaras, I assume you read them and understand the subject. We're talking about Kachal. We're in Simon Tzadi, uh, Tzadi or Tzadik, and talking about Kachal, which is the udder of the cow. And actually, I can ask you a question, which is, if you've gone through the different discussions here, if you could abstract, like, what is the, if you could give the most abstracted or generalized categorization of what the nature of the discussion is. In other words, not connected with the particular material, like that happens to be an udder of a cow, but but if you would abstract it more generally about law in general, what do you think? What is the debate going on? What is the confusion? I guess it's kind of I'll let you. It's an open
When,
question.
when does absorption, the issue of absorption, when does the the innards of the cow absorb the the milk?
Okay, I mean, you're right. When does absorption take place? That's actually even at the end of this siman, we talk about that even more with roasting, meet them together. Yeah, that is a topic, but I want even more abstract, more distant, pulled back from the subject at hand. Joel, what do you say?
Can we really make distinctions between two types of objects or things that look exactly the same? When you, and
What looks exactly the same?
milk, where the origin is different.
Oh,
Yeah, and can we at the end of the day really make a distinction?
okay, I like it. I like it. Right, yeah. All right, I'll tell you my thought. My thought is super far away from this material. It's just saying when there is a gezerah, what can't we have fleshik? Why can't we have fleshik ice cream anyway? You could maybe fleshik, yeah, right. Um, or it would be yeah. Why? No, my question is not that, but or the way I see it is the debate is really about in gezerahs. In other words, we're trying. We have a gezerah d'Rabbanan, and we're really trying to see how how strict or how far the gezerah went. We have a gezerah without a full explanation. We don't know why they made the gezerah, exactly what they were thinking, and we're trying to figure out how far, how what were they thinking? What is the the parameters of this gezerah? What are the parameters of the gezerah d'Rabbanan where we don't really have any explicit statement about it, and whether the gezerah is more. That's maybe I'll tighten it. Whether the gezerah is more about making it like a Torah law, and therefore giving it everything about a Torah law, or just is the gezerah more in the category of, let's say, Marit Ayin. It's not trying to make it equate it to a Torah law, but just make a kind of protection, just a geder to protect the law, but not to try to equate it with the Torah law. How exactly is this gezerah? Because remember, why is this all a gezerah d'Rabbanan? Why am I saying it's all a gezerah d'Rabbanan? Why is this whole subject a d'Rabbanan?
It, it's Xera due to Basar V'chalav.
Yeah, why? What's the din Torah?
The din Torah is that Chal would be fine, but there's Xera to not eat it due to Basar V'chalav.
Right. There, in other words, that chalav found in the other is not really chalav. It's not really chalav. It's only rabbinically chalav. It's really just part of the animal. Okay, so let's start. Maybe Jacob, you read the tour a little bit.
Yeah. Hakachal asor midivris ofrim in basar basel bechalav shluta asor.
Wait, am I in the wrong place, or are you in the wrong place?
In the Torah, Jacob, right?
Sorry. Um, uh, um, Hakachal ben shehu shel manika sheish b'chalav harbe ben eno shel manika asor midurabanan levaslo afilu b'kader levado below basar. The chlosakain im habasar. Ella koro shetivareb itchlu b'chotel lotzi kol alav shabo v'azmet vasa b'kader levado. So an udder, whether it's from like a actively like lactating cow, which would have a lot of milk, whether it's not of a lactating cow, it's a sore midurabanan to cook even in a dish by itself without any other. What?
And by itself might also mean with water. By
Right.
itself might also mean with water. You're boiling it up, but you're not. But there's no other. The main point is there's no other
Exactly.
meat there. So even that is usser. It's usser. It's usser to cook. You can't cook the chalav in a pot.
Mm-hmm.
Midrabanan. Okay,
Right.
and then he says, but then he goes on.
So the close can even well, all the more so if there is other meat in it, you can't cook it because then it would
unless you do what?
Unless you tear it lengthwise and widthwise, and smear it on the wall to take out all the milk that's in it, and then it can be cooked in a pot by itself. Again, it could be with water, but not with other pieces of meat.
Exactly. So you're not going to be cooking this other meat. Roasting, we'll see later, is a different story. Roasting, you also maybe shouldn't do with meat, but you maybe don't have to do, or maybe you don't have to do at all. There's different opinions. Maybe you don't have to do at all kriya. We saw in the Gemara that I think it was Rav Nachman, right, who said just roast it without you doing any kriya. So there's certainly opinions that if you're roasting it, maybe you don't have to do any kriya, but certainly for boiling you do, and maybe for roasting you also have to do kriya, and maybe roasting. We'll talk about roasting later. Okay, lo karo. So what if you didn't follow this recipe?
Lo karo. O afilu karo lo tachlu b'kotel uvaso afilu b'keder vado im ein shishim k'neged hachal asor. V'im yesh shishim k'negdo mutar v'achal atzmo mashlim l'shishim. So if he didn't tear it, or if he tore it and didn't smear it on a wall, and he cooked it, even in a pot by itself, if there's not 60 against the udder, it's prohibited. And if there is 60 against it, it's permitted. And the klal itself counts to the 60.
What does it mean? Yeah. So wait, what the im yeshi? So if there, so what's the case again? Let me say that again to myself. If you didn't do this karo, you were a naughty boy. Or you did it, but you didn't do it fully, right? You didn't do tacha bakota, and then you cooked it. If it's by itself, then if you don't have 60, the kachal is aser. What about the other things? Oh, aser akol, I suppose. V'im yeshishim kenegdo, if there is 60 against it. So mutter, what's mutter? Akol? Or is the kachal aser? There's mutter. Everything is mutter?
Well, it's interesting because the way this is phrased, like Well, I guess because there's the condition of Afila B'Kdera Levado, but I suppose knowing from what we've seen later, the klal is still a sore, but I guess we're saying because it's a derabanan form of milk into usser, we still can count this kahal toward the 60 and everything else can be permitted.
We definitely can count the kachal two ways. There's different possible explanations for that. V'kachal atzmo mashlim l'shishim. That I understand. But you're saying mutter means that the rest of the stuff is mutter, but not the kachal.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's one possible interpretation. The interpretation I think is most likely.
Everybody, maybe that's probably right. That's probably right. Anybody dissent? Any dissenting opinions? No. Okay, that's a little bit misleading. Okay. Now we have to fit the other side.
What's the rest of the stuff? There's only a kachal. Kachal and water. No?
Water.
No, well,
I think it's levad. No, he's equating the two cases.
Because I think
he's saying he's talking only about that case. You're saying he's only talking about a case where it's by itself. Akachal asur ve'im yesh shishim mutter. The kachal is mutter. You're saying there was 60 water against it, and now it's all mutter.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm reading it as like, even if the kachal is by itself, it's a sore, but we're still broadly talking about cases because it's even. Because
I understand.
Including
exactly.
We're still talking broadly about other cases, is how I would understand it, where there could be other things.
Yeah, I think that's the way it sort of lends itself, but I think that Shammai is actually more right in this case. I think that's more correct. That he, even though he said afilu, he really means even though. He really should translate it as like almost like even though it was by itself, it's going to be usher. And if there's 60, then it'll be mutter. And he's talking only about a case where it's by itself, perhaps. I mean, I think that might be right. All right, let's go on a little bit. Ve'im bashlo b'kedei ra'im basar.
Okay, yeah. Ve'im bashlo b'kedei ra'im basar afilu yishim kinegdo hakal asor basar mutar.
So there you go.
Okay.
So there you see that he was talking about where it's by itself. So where it's by itself, everything is mutter. But where it's with other meat, even though there's 60, the kachal remains asur. Babasar mutar.
Yeah. Im baslo ham acharet b'ktera dino kamo ub'ham harishona.
So we'll talk about So if you cook it at another time, it's like the first time, which means presumably. Well, what do you think that means?
I think it has to do with kind of we don't know how much or any like milk left it, so we have to just kind of like a case of Hanan, just count it as it is.
Now, don't say what?
Don't say it's. We can't say it's.
That all the milk went out of it.
Exactly.
Don't say that all the milk went out of it. But what about the other aspect? Can you also count 59, or do you need 60? In the Pam Rishonah, you only needed 59. Is that still the case? So that's a question. It's a good question to think about that. It could be that, yes, again, 59. And then we'll see. I think the Shach will talk about that. Or the Taz. All right, let's maybe Max, you just joined us, so maybe I'll get you to already really join us by reading something. You ready to read? I want to read in the Beit Yosef. It says, but now we're going to skip the whole first part of the Beit Yosef, where he just goes through the Gemara kind of and Rashi's shot. I want to go straight to where it says, Umasha katav im bashlu b'kedera im basar. Afilu yesh. But notice that last part that we just read. Im basar b'kedera im basar. Masha katav im basar b'kedera im basar. The second half. Then we said afilu yesh shishim kenegdo kachal asur. All of a sudden, the kachal is asur. It was mutar when it was with water, but when it's with other meat, it's asur, which is kind of not obvious because the meat is kosher, the water is kosher. What's the difference? The milk is only derabanan anyway. You have 60 against it. Why should the kachal become asur? So go ahead, go for it, Max.
Sorry, can you give me a
Yeah, umasha
phrase?
katuv the Beis Yosef is starting from the words umasha katav in dark letters by me. Umasha katav im bashlo or bishlo b'kedera im basar. Kedera im
Okay,
basar.
got it. All right. All right. Haynu mada amar b'perakid hanashe ukchal atzmo asur ukmo shu mevuar b'ma shekasavti b'shem atosfos v'arosh v'tama mishum tama basar hanivla b'chalav shebekchal. So the
Okay, wait a
reason
second.
why the reason why the chal isn't mutter is because or why the basar isn't mutter is because
No, but kachal.
sorry, yeah, right, the basar does stay mutter. The
Basar of the
chal is
kachal.
because it has absorbed flavor from that other meaty flavor.
Just a second, sorry. Do it very quickly, please hurry up. Okay. So Taima Mishum Tama Basar Hanivla. So which Tama Basar? Which Basar is that?
The other basar in the kedera.
Right. The other Basar in the Kachal. In the Kalav, which is in the Kachal. Which wouldn't happen if it was water.
Right.
All right. So here's what I was talking about. We're trying to understand why there's this Gezerah that when you cook it with meat, the Kachal is going to be Aser. Now, what does the Ran say? I mean, I don't even understand this first shot. I don't understand. What does the Rosh mean? Mishum Tam? What does that mean? What is the idea? Tama bas. It's like he's saying it's basar b'chalav because I guess he's saying there's more chalav in the. It's almost like he's saying there's more chalav in the kachal, and it has tam of the basar that's foreign basar, and when it's foreign basar, then it tastes like meat and milk. And so it's sort of similar to the prohibition of cooking milk and meat, right? Because it's foreign basar. If it would be internal basar, the internal but meat of the kachal in the milk, then, I mean, why isn't that also milk like milk and meat? It's the thing itself. It's also milk and meat. I mean, so one of the things that I read said something. One of the commentaries here, I don't remember exactly who, said because it's like almost like a stronger meat taste from the external meat coming in is like real meat, whereas the kachal meat already tastes like milk. So you didn't really change it in any way. It already has a milky taste to it because it's infused with milk. But so you didn't do any effective change. But when you brought foreign meat in, you changed it. So therefore, it's kind of like milk and meat. You've gotten a new flavor going. So I'm saying that the Rosh is understanding it as being similar to the Torah law. And now what does the Ran say?
ואמר כסף, כחל עצמו אסר, פירוש מפני מריס העין, שאף על פי שראוי להתיר כחל זה מפני שהחלב יצא ממנו ונסבטל, אי שריס לי אסי למשרי חתיכס נבלה. So the Ran thinks there's Medina, there's no Isser, it's just Maris Ayin.
Right. In other words, it's in the right, exactly. It's in the general category of Maris Ayin. It's not like a special trying to equate the kachal to other basar b'chalav cases. Is just, but what is the mishrei chaticha nevela? People will come to eat nevela. Doesn't quite. He should have said it. Maybe he mean. What does he really mean? Why would you come to eat nevela because you ate a kachal from a kosher animal?
You would have thought Atu the Mishrei Basar B'chalav.
Yeah, that would maybe make better. Yeah. Maybe that's what he means. Maybe that's what he means.
Yeah,
Maybe when he says nevel, he's being
general.
general in his terminology. But yeah, but it's some kind of marit ayin. He doesn't really explain what it is. Okay, so this is interesting. There's two different explanations. So you say, why is this is like the basic question? Why is kachal aser when you cook it with meat? So we're saying either it's because it has a little bit more kind of milk and meat flavor, or because it looks like you're cooking milk and meat together. Okay, go on.
Vida dehachinami kachal atzmo mashlim leminyan shishim alpha pishu atzmo aser shaharei kachal b'shishim ukachal min minyan. Okay, so just don't forget that kachal counts towards 60, even though it itself is usr.
No, you're
We have
cooking it
this
with other
principle.
meat, and it's you only have 59 other meats, and you have the one kachal, so the meat is going to be mutter, and the kachal is asur, but the kachal actually helped to matter the other meats. If you had only had 58, it wouldn't have been permitted.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of also weird because it's really mutter, because the kachal is really mutter. So we're going to let you count it to mavatal itself. Okay.
Yeah. Amar Yitzchak Breder Misharshia kachal atzmo aser. Right, that's just him finishing off that thought.
Right.
Um,
Well, that's the statement that the kachal atzmo is aser, and that's the statement we're trying to explain.
yeah.
All right, go ahead. V'kein kasav Rambam.
V'kein kasav Rambam beperek tesvav de'afilu k'shakachal atzmo aser kachal min haminyan. ומאחר שכן הוא צריך לומר שמה שכתב רבינו והקהל עצמו משלים למניין שישים אינו מקושר עם מה שלמעלה אלא עניין לעצמו הוא שלמדנו שהקהל עצמו משלים לשישים כל היכא שצריך שישים בין שהקהל עצמו מותר בין שיהיה אסר.
Right. In other words, it's a general statement that the kachal is mashlim. All right, we
Right.
go on. The
Right, even though
tomar,
it's okay.
even though what? Finish what you said.
Even though it's not necessarily connected to the question of, well,
I think it's the point is that it's whether it's the case of whether it's by itself or not by itself.
right,
In both
which
of
is not
those cases,
necessary.
he's saying. Don't think it's only in the case of where it's by itself that it also there it's going to add. It's going to add to the water. If you have 59 waters and one kachal, it'll be mutter, and everything will be mutter. But if you have 59 meats, then it'll be usher. So in both cases, we say that even though it makes more sense in the first case where it was mutter in the end. I think that's his point. Joel?
No, I think the language of the Torah is confusing because it sounds like the mashlim l'shishim only applies in the case where it's cooked by itself. It doesn't. He doesn't write it again for this.
Right. Okay. Excellent. But he's saying it is in both cases. All right. We go on.
ואם תאמר כמעט הקהל עצמו אסר, היכי הוא מצטרף להשלים שישים. Right, so we have this question, how
can
question. Something that is usr also
So this is another
help?
question. I'm thinking like, what are the balabatim in your shul going to ask you? Why is kachal, in other words, first of all, why is it usr in this case? And we already explained two reasons, either marit ayin or, and then he explained, and then why, if it's usr, how can it add? And it's a basic question. So what's the answer?
Yeah.
Here to a Tosfos.
צירצו התוספות והראש, שהטעם מפני שאיסורו של כחל אינו משום שיש בו טעם חלב יוסר משאר בשר, אלא לפי שיש בו גומות שהחלב כנוס לסוחו. ויש באוסו חלב טעם בשר, ואי אפשר להפרישו מן הבשר דלא מהני קריאה לאחר בישולו.
So it's got these gumot of milk that have the flavor of meat.
Right.
And they're like sort of they're like little ants inside of your chocolate cake that they're very hard to get out. Vas, go ahead. He's not finished explaining. The truth is, he's not finished quoting the Tosfos. He's not finished explaining the Tosfos. V'afagav.
V'afagav debigmar bishulo yotze kol So
and he says, but then you should say some of the milk stayed in. And then why are you needing 59 against the whole thing? Maybe so you're telling me some of the milk stayed in. He says, oh, you're right. And the answer to that is none of the milk stays in. It does come out. But it was in there for a time. And at that time, it became aser.
Yeah.
Which is, right, he's doing a lot of fancy thinking here to try to explain this. Weird. I don't know if your Baal Bayit will like this explanation. But that's what he's saying. He's saying that it had little bits of milk and it couldn't get them out. And then when you finally did get them out, but it's too late, it was aser. Okay.
Yeah.
It's almost like that we're worried that they can't tell when you actually finish cooking it, which is a little bit absurd. Like people don't know when it's finished cooking because he's saying, right, while it's cooking, there's still milk. When it's finished cooking, there's absolutely no milk. Still, I'm going to make it aser because maybe people don't know when it's finished cooking.
Yeah, he didn't say those words, but you're in the right. That is the right way of thinking about it.
No, I think he said it like in the next sentence.
Okay, wait. Yeah, okay, he does it. So yeah, and actually, there's a Tosfos fits to another Tosfos that we didn't. I don't know if you saw it, but I think some of the people. I think we did learn at the beginning of the year. There's another Tosfos where he talks about. He says, but we see that when you cook vegetables, the flavor comes out. How can you say no flavor comes out? And he said, well, it comes out at the end. Joel?
It was the color, right? They said we see that because it was holding while it's still boiling that there's no flavor transfer maybe one way, and they say, well, you put orange carrots in a soup, it turns orange, right? It's like that's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the Tosfos has this whole idea of something magical happens at the end of the bishul, that it all goes out. That then it happens, but at the beginning of the bishul it doesn't. And there is in the Gemara, it does talk about a little bit about Gemar Bishulo. The concept of Gemar Bishulo does exist in the Talmud. Okay. All right. Right. So you stopped. Read that again, Max. V'tu.
Right. The Tulo mystery.
Because once it's forbidden, it stays forbidden. Why? And this is what Shammai said. Dechayshinan
shema yochleno kodem Gemar Bishulo. Right. Maybe you'll eat it before that.
So all
before all of the milk goes out.
Keep going.
Ulafish ein hakal ne'asar machmas atzmo el machmas chalav hakanus begumos lekach havi kmoshar basar levatlo adkan. So because the kal itself is aser, or is only aser because of the chalav hakanus,
and not itself aser.
Right.
There's the kachal, the meat of the kachal. It's like that chocolate cake it's the chocolate cake is mutter. It's just that the little ants inside of it are not kosher. So that's atzmo, it's really mutter. Right. And therefore what? L'kach have kamo shar basar levatlo. In other words, therefore,
once all of the milk is out, it's just like normal basar.
Meat, and you could matter. Well, if you would go out, but if it doesn't go out, I think, or maybe he means that therefore it counts both ways. Therefore, he means it counts like part of the meat to help to bittul. Have a kamoshar basar levatlo. In other words, it's like the other meat.
Levatel chalav.
Yeah, to levatel chalav. Exactly. That's why it counts 59. Because he's still saying it's aser.
Right.
Because maybe not all the milk went out. But it's only aser because of the milk in it, not because of the meat in it. Notice what he doesn't say here. What he doesn't say here is that it becomes aser because of basar b'chalav. It's almost as though he thinks that there's no such thing as basar b'chalav by milk, which is derabanan. Right? This is only derabanan milk, so maybe he doesn't want to get into the topic, except that he did say the gumot are aser because of meat. Yeah, Joel.
I think the milk is aser because of basar b'chalav, because the milk comes out, mixes with the other meat, but the udder itself has like particular pockets of that meaty milk in it that get stuck to it.
But it's not enough to make it. He's really walking a tightrope here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Somehow the meat stays meaty and not milk meaty, but the milk becomes milk meaty. Okay, it's all with the Rabbanan, so it's like he's inventing things. Okay, Rambam.
והרמב"ם כתב שעתה מפני שעקחה מדבריהם, לפיכך יקלו בשירו, ואף על פי ששומן גיד בשישים.
Oh, wait a second, wait a second. So he says
All right,
they were
so yeah,
lenient with it because it's the Rabbanan, and therefore they
right.
just said that you could do
It counts.
59 and not 60, but it's just a sort of a kula. And now people argue. I forget who I saw recently. I saw today. Somebody said, well, maybe he's going to say now exactly. What about Shuman Agid?
Right, Shuman Agid,
Other
right?
things that are
Another,
Rabbanan. Shuman Agid is
right.
also Rabbanan. Why did they make it there? So go on.
Right, ואף על פי ששומן אגיד בשישים ואף על פי שהוא מדבריהם, so that seems like a stira. הואיל וגיד הנשה בריה בפני עצמו החמירו בו כאיסורי Torah. Right, that the like ikr of the isser in that case is beria, and so it is not appropriate to have the same kula that we have by kal.
Right. Because Biria tells us that the Torah is extra stringent on this item. It even a small amount is forbidden. So from the Torah. So therefore they're strict. But this comes out very weird. It comes out like every drabanan. I find another drabanan that's not. So what about chicken? What about chicken? Is chicken going to be also 59? Nobody says chicken is 59.
Right.
So it's a little bit. We got to think about the Rambam. What does he really mean? So my answer is that he doesn't mean it's because it's that it's not because Drabanan and therefore and any Drabanan we're going to say 59, but it's because it's Drabanan, they allow you. I was trying to put it in the Tosos in. They allow you to count it both ways. In other words, it's something special about kachal that it has milk in it and meat in it, and because it's Rabbanan milk, they let you count the meat and against the milk. I actually have another theory, which maybe we'll see a bit later. Another theory, but okay, let's go. So, wait, did you finish?
There's one more line. והרשב"א בתור זבייס דחתם זה מפני שהרי ייסורי סופרים גם הם צריכים שישים. Right, this sort of
Yeah, he says, what are you talking about?
You can't make a general statement about that. והגהוס מימון, no, הרב המגיד כתב בפרק טס שיש אומרים שהטעם מפני שהוא מותר בפני עצמו, וכן כתב הר"ן. So a couple of different ways of defending.
Yeah, because it's mutter b'pnei atzmo. In other words, if you would just take a kachal and eat it raw, nobody's going to say that's usser. It's a mutter kind of thing. Question. So wait. So we have given a. Can you summarize what all the different reasons that we saw are? Maybe three reasons. Can you give me three reasons?
So the Rosh's reason is because of the ta'am of the meat in the pot that'll be absorbed into the klal,
right?
Into the milk of the klal. The ran was marisayin.
Well, the time of the meat being absorbed, the way I explained it is because it's foreign meat and it's strong and therefore it's like a change in flavor. When the kachal was just kachal, it didn't change. When the meat of the kachal gets milk in it, it didn't really change in any way because it always had milk in it. But when new meat comes in, it's like super powerful meat, and so it changes the flavor. Marit ayin is the second one. What else?
That's the ran.
That's the ran.
And the Rambam, no, that was different, sort of a different piece.
The Rambam didn't really explain why it's usser.
Oh, because it's Durabanan. That was the Rambam towards the end.
Yeah, he says Durabanan, but that explains why it's.
Oh no, that was the Shishim question.
Why it's Shishim, right?
Yeah.
What about the Rashba? Did the Rashba give her is this Rashba a reason? No, he's explaining the reasons why it's mutter, even though it should be usser. They're kind of assuming it should be usser. Okay. So they're kind of assuming it should be usser, and the question is, why is it mutter?
Right. The first question is, why is the klal usser when it's cooked with other meat, and that's the rosh and the ran, and then we got into the question of why is it 59 and not 60?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Those are the two.
Wait, what about the Tosfot? The Tosfot says it's usher because of the gumot. That's the third reason.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the third reason. That's why I said
Uh-huh.
there's three reasons, right?
Uh-huh.
There's the
Yeah.
right the Rosh because of the extra meat, the foreign meat, the Ran because of Marit Ayin, and the Tosfot because of
Yeah.
gumot. Okay. Now, did we read this? What is this? There's a next piece. Umasha katzav im bashlo pam acheret b'kedeira dino kumo b'pam rishona. And I asked, what does that mean, kipama rishona? Does it mean lakula or lachumra, essentially? What would lakula would mean we get to count 59, and lachumra would mean we don't say that all the milk went out of it. So which is he coming to say, or is he saying both? So here, so maybe Noam, you want to read the next little bit about Yosef?
Yeah, but I was just trying to understand the tour. Could you repeat what you just said about the Pam Rishona, Pam Acheret? Because I probably
Yeah, in
wasn't
the tour
misunderstanding
it
it right.
says, he says, Yeshishim keneged hakachal asur v'habasar mutar. The other pieces of meat are mutar, but the basar is asur when there was 60 pieces of meat there, or 59 pieces of meat there. Ve'im bash
The kal is a sort. The kal is a sort. There's
the kachal is
59.
asur, but the other
Yeah.
59 pieces of meat
Yeah.
are all mutar. And then he
Okay.
says, Ve'im bashal pamacheret, if you took that asur kachal and dropped it in another 59 pieces of meat, it's kapama rishona. And what is he coming to say? Is he coming to say akula l'chumra? Is he trying to say akula or a chumra? He's trying to say you might have thought you need 60, but guess what? You only need 59. You might have thought you need 60 because it's usher now. Before it was a mutter kachal. Now it's an usher kachal. So usher kachal maybe has different dinim. He's saying no, even though it's usher kachal, you still need 59. Or is he saying it's a chumra? You might have thought that all the milk came out of the kachal into all the pieces of meat, and now the kachal is really it's usher, but it's like there's no milk in it. So I don't know what you would have thought there exactly, but let's because it's still going to be if it's usher, it's usher. Okay, so let's see what he says.
Okay. So, and what words am I going from exactly? It
makes sense that he's talking about lakula. In other words, you only need 59. Because it doesn't really make sense to say, why would anybody think all the milk came out and therefore you do, and therefore what? It's an usher thing. You're obviously going to need to bavatal it.
Okay.
So he's saying he's going to explain. Prepare gita nasha.
Prepare gita nasha. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar the Rav Masharshia. Bekal atzmo asur. The inafalak deracheret oser. Okay, so it says in Perkita Nasha that the chal itself is forbidden, and if it falls into another pot, then it forbids.
Right.
Ufiresh Rashi, chal atzmo asur, sharei habasar natan bo tam, vehu lo natan tam bebasar, lefi shemuataya. Yeah. So Rashi says that the meat, I guess this is from the first pot.
This is a fourth explanation, actually, right? This is a fourth explanation for why it's usher. Shaharei habasar in the 59 pieces, Natan bo tam. They made it. They gave it this meaty one. It's actually very similar to the rosh. I think it's basically the same as the rosh. But the other meats gave it flavor. Vehu lo natan tam basar, but the kachal didn't give tam basar lefisha mu'atu. He's batel in 59. So he doesn't affect them, so they're similar. But they affect him because it's kind of like if you drop a piece of a small piece of cheese into a meat soup, and then you take the piece of cheese out. Even if there's 60 against the cheese, the soup will be mutter, but the cheese is small. It got flavor from the meat. I think that's what he's equating.
the relevance of this second part of Rashi, the fact that the chal isn't giving the meat flavor, is that it
That's how the meat
means
is
that
mutter.
okay.
That's
Okay,
why the
okay.
meat is mutter. And why is the piece usser? Because it got flavor from the meat, which were bigger than it, which were more numerous
Okay.
than it. Go ahead.
V'tzarich begamara lamanda mar bekule
Uparish,
mishari.
uparish.
Oh, on Ala Torah they have the tzarich, but that makes more sense. The parich begamara lamanda mar bekule mishari nan elamata nafalik dera acheret lo yosar. Right, so there's a kashya in the Gemara for anyone who says that we count all of it. That means we count 59 pieces against the kal. Is that what the
No,
kule
yeah,
mashari nan means?
as opposed to saying, well, how much milk could there really be in the kachal? It can't be the whole thing. It could only maybe maximum half or maximum 80%. So let's only measure against 80% of it, not the whole thing. But if you're measuring against the whole thing,
Oh, right. Big kule
then
mashari.
you
Yeah.
must be that you're assuming that all the milk went out. So it's actually going
I'm
to
now,
say, yeah,
yeah, it's as opposed to the opinion that says Maida Nafa Kine,
exactly,
right? It's not coming
exactly.
back to me. Okay. So, but there's a kachi in the Gemara which says, but according to that opinion, if it falls into another pot, shouldn't it forbid?
No, lo
And
yeaser. It wouldn't forbid. It shouldn't forbid.
it,
It shouldn't forbid, but that's not right. It does forbid.
right,
And it shouldn't
right.
though, because all the milk came out of it. This is kind of like the possible way of reading the tour that I didn't really think makes sense. The Gemara actually says it, and it says it doesn't make sense. Well, perish Rashi.
Upiresh Rashi, Elamata ho'il uvidide mesharinan, ha'ivtil kule, shalach kol atzmo, betavshil, dim lo tomar hachi, amai bai shishim, kemat kulo. So, yeah, Rashi says that according to that, since we're judging we're counting the entire chal, well, then it was all nullified. And if you don't say thus, then why do you need 60 against it?
You
Then
should
why
need
do you need 60
less.
against it?
You should need 60
Right.
against 80% of it. The keva and the kule batle, and since it's all batel, now since you had to have 60, and it was actually batel because you had 59 against the whole thing. Kevan,
The kule betalte nafal bekdera acheret al yosar. So okay, yeah, so that's the kashya because there was all bittul. Then if it fell into another one, then it wouldn't forbid.
right? And yet we don't think that makes sense.
Umishane kevanda amar Rabbi Yitzchak v'kmal atzmo asur shavuya rabanan kechatichat nevela. So the answer is that there's basically just a gzera that we don't need the kal.
Yeah, Uperish Rashi.
Ufiresh Rashi kevanda amar Rabbi Yitzchak v'chulei mipnei shebatchila nesar ad shelo nitztamek mishenanak dera.
Here he's giving it more, a little bit different from what you said. You just read the Gemara simply, that he's saying the rabbis decreed that it's usher, so therefore it's usher, and it falls in the second part, it's also usher. And Rashi says, no, that's not enough of a reason, I think. I don't think he thinks that's enough of a reason. We were trying to come up with the mathematics of it. So,
Right.
so what does he say?
Rashi seems to be saying it's like the physical reality of the kal has changed.
Yeah, so let's read it again.
מבנה שבתחילה נאסר עד שלא נצטמק, מי שנתנק דרבו תם מיד נאסר, ומאז שבויה רבנן כחתיכת איסור שלא לעולם אסורה. So, at the beginning, it was forbidden because it hasn't shrunk.
Yeah. Before it shrank, wait. Before it got small, it was forbidden.
I think the meats to make here just means before it let all the milk came out and was batel, essentially.
Exactly. I think you imagine it like exactly. Imagine it like a balloon full of water, and then in the cooking process causes it to burst, and then the milk comes out. So before that, mifnei shebetchila ne'asar ad shelo nitztamek, mishenatna hakadei rabo tam miyad ne'asar. It became forbidden because it wasn't 60, presumably. In other words, the Kedera gave it tam before it burst. Shabia Rabbanan Katicha Isser, and then it became Aser. And even though all the milk eventually came out, you know what this sounds exactly like? What does it sound exactly like?
The Rosh and the Tosfot?
The Tosfot. It sounds exactly like Tosfot. He's not going into the details of the gumot and everything, but he's saying the same principle, that it was forbidden at the beginning of the bishul, and at the end of the bishul, it all came out, but it's too late. Right?
Well, wait. It also sounds like the Rosh in that it's the milk of the Chal that's being contaminated by the meat, right? Is that right?
Well, that's also what the Tosfot said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's also what the Tosfot say. Yeah.
But the Rosh, why? I'm just looking back at the Rosh. Why the Rosh?
Am I misremembering? Isn't that what the Rosh said? That the milk of the Chal is getting infected by the kosher meat?
The Rosh said.
When the Beit Yosef quoted it before, he actually quoted in the name of the Tosfot and the Rosh. So, yeah, that's right.
Okay. Right. V'tirtzu atosfot v'harosh. Yeah, the Tosfot and the Rosh. Yes, I agree with you. Tosfot and the Rosh. But it's not the Rosh at the end. There's a different Rosh that's brought later. No? Okay, whatever. Tosfot and the Rosh. Yeah, good. So the Rashi actually sounds exactly like the Tosfot and the Rosh. Makes sense. The Tosfot, at least Tosfot and Rashi are relatives. Okay, go on.
The Haran Piresh Kevan, the my Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Masharshia, Kalat Smo Asur, Shavua Rabbanan, Kechatichat Nevela, Mibne Marita Ein. So, okay,
Right.
the way I translated before is like what the Ran says, which is just, it's Exer the Rabbanan based on Marit Ein.
Right. So, wait a second. So, what is the Hiddush? If you go back to based on what we just read, what's the Hiddush of Kapam Rishonah? What does it mean, Kapam Rishonah? What's the Hiddush of Kapam Rishonah? What's the main point of Pama Rishonah, according to what we just read? It's Asur, no. V'im bishlo pam acheret v'kedeira, if you throw it into a second pot and cook it, dino kamo b'pam rishonah. What is that coming to explain? What is that coming to say?
I think that there's no kula there.
Right.
Or
don't say what? Don't say that you don't need 60. You need maybe 40 or 30 because most of the milk already came out. That's what it's going to say. Don't say that, but it's not coming to say necessarily. Well, we don't know. We'll see it in the Shulchan Aruch. You'll see what the Taz says. Yeah, Joel.
The Bach goes into this, right? It's not that long, but he says it teaches us two things. One, don't say it's not a sur at all. It does not oser at all, rather. And also don't say that you need 60 now because it's a nevela. And now,
Yeah. Okay, that's the kula. I know.
Yeah.
But fine. That's also the Shach Dalet is going to say that.
Mm-hmm.
The Shach or the Taz. I think the Taz Dalet. I wrote Shach here. I think it's Taz. I think it's the Taz Dalet. Yeah, well, it makes sense that it's the Taz because he's the son-in-law of the Bach. But I'm just saying, according to Beit Yosef, the emphasis is definitely on one of those two things, on the fact that don't say you need like even less than 59. Okay, let's go on in the tour. Maybe Jacob, you were reading the tour before. You want to read again? With Tzli.
Yeah, I can read. V'letzli tzarich kriya sti v'arev tzlo below kriya mutar zaguliyat Rashi. And for roasting, we need tearing lengthwise, widthwise.
And we don't need what?
The smearing on the wall.
Yeah, smearing on the wall or pressing against the wall, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
So you need a little bit
but
less diligence in getting the milk out.
but roasting without tearing is mutar, at least according to the opinion of Rashi.
So below, no, bidievid salo. If you
Yeah.
bidievid, if you salo below kriya, you were a bad boy. Well, it's mutter.
Yeah.
Or a bad girl. Zeo udat Rashi. Okay.
Yeah.
Udat Rabbeinu Tam.
L'dad Rabbeinu Tam im karo shtivar if v'tchlu b'kotel mutar l'vaslo v'lechatchila b'kdera im habasar.
Ah, so he learns the Gemara totally differently.
Yeah.
He learns the Gemara that it says you have to when it says you have to do kriya sheti v'erev v'tacha b'kotel, that was talking about cooking it with meat, and then it'd be mutter. Whereas Rashi said, what did Rashi say? Did Rashi say you could ever cook it with meat?
I don't remember.
No, he said you could cook it when you did kriya sheti v'erev. You could cook it by itself only.
Mm-hmm.
The Reinu Tam disagrees. He says no. When you do kriya sheti v'erev, then you cook it with basar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Lo karo.
Yeah, the Rashi is about everything before. Yes, everything we did up till now is Rashi.
Okay.
And now we're doing Rabbeinu Tam. And Rabbeinu Tam disagrees with Rashi and says, if you did Kriya Sheti Be'erev and Tacha B'Kotel, then you're basically reduced it to the normal state of meat, and you can do whatever you can with meat, you can do with it. Rashi says, no, it never gets to the state of meat. You could only cook it by itself. Go ahead.
Okay. Lo karo klal uvas o im habasar oser ad shishim.
Right. If you didn't do any kriya, then it's going to be forbidden even b'diavad.
Yeah.
Ad shishim. V'im yesh shishim, go on.
V'im yesh shishim kachal asur uvasar mutar.
Okay.
If there is 60, the chal itself is a store, but the rest of the meat will be permitted. Aval bashlo below basar o tzalo b'diavad afilu below kriya klal mutar.
Mutar. So he has a totally different. He's sort of like all those explanations that we had for why it's asur if it's by itself, or here he's saying if it's by itself, it's never going to be contaminated by other meat, so you don't have to. The milk itself is not going to forbid it the meat. As the milk within the udder can never cause an isser. But you shouldn't cook it like that. That's b'diavad. Yeah. Again, I should read it again. Aval bashlo b'diavad. If you cooked it below basar, otsalo b'diavad afilu below kriya klal, it would still be mutter because you did it by itself. Go ahead.
V'im karo kitzat below kochato asor l'chatchila im habasar. V'im shalom imo b'diavad mutar.
So here is another clue. He's saying, and if you did a little bit of a kriya, then if you cook it, even if you cook it with meat, it'll be mutter. B'diavad. You can't do that, but it'll be mutter. So in other words, the rabbis in their gezerah said, do this full processing of the meat. Take all the milk out, then you cook it with meat. But they admitted that if you did a little bit, if you sort of like did a zecher to their gezerah, then they're going to allow it b'diavad. But if you did a little bit of kriya of a mutter, or you go on of a mutter
lechatchila v'laslo below dasar o litzloto ayidei kriya kitzat aval below kriya klal afilu litzloto asor lechatchila.
Right. So you need to do a little bit of kriya even if you want to roast it, and if you want to cook it by itself, you should do a little bit of kriya. Then it's allowed. A bit basar if you want to cook it with meat. Aval mutter l'chatchila lebashlo below basar, so without meat.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now I want to look at the Beit Yosef Ladat Rabbeinu Tam. Joel, you want to read that?
Sure. That's gonna go back. Umashikatal, no, I'm in the Bach, sorry. L'dat Rabbeinu Tam. Im
Yeah.
kra'osh sheti ve'erev v'tacho bekotel v'chule, right? This is Rabbeinu Tam thinks that if you do the kriya, it is mutar levashol v'chachila b'k'dirayim basar. That was the finish of that. So, okay. Ken katvu sham atosfot ve'arosh shehu mefaresh da'ad tzarich kriya sheti ve'erev v'ticha likdera hainu im basar, right? Likdera hachimashma, right? Dechalav shchuta
In other words, the
midrabanan.
Gemara says l'kedera, and he says when it says l'kedera, it means
With meat.
with
Yeah.
meat.
So, that's what's implied. Likdera hachimashma, right? Because why? Dechalav shchuta midrabanan. Right? Dilma'ati lemechal basar b'chalav, because it's shchuta, chalav shchuta is really just a rabbinic thing of a gezerah, lest we come to eat milk and meat together.
So now, how is he viewing the gezerah? The gezerah is to remind you, I would say, that this is not regular. In other words, that you can't normally cook milk and meat. So what do? So you do some kind of kriya, and now that's sort of like a hecher that you do. That's a different thing. It's not regular milk and meat, and therefore it's permitted. And that's why he actually permits a little bit of a kriya.
So
Yeah,
he said v'chevan shotzi et kol. Am I in the right place? Yeah, v'chevan shotzi et kol hachalav kol ma sheyachol leotzi, right? Tu lekel and migzar, right? Since you've done essentially the best you can, once you do, if you rip it, width and length, and you press it against the wall, that's you probably not get all the milk out, but you do a very good job. And so
and then there's no gezerah. Yeah. So therefore, don't tell me like Rashi says that even if you did all that, you still can't cook with meat. Now, once you did everything you can, you did your best job, you did what we expected of you, then you've made a zecher. So there's no more gezerah anymore. So, go ahead.
Well, I gotta find my place again. Migzar aval liktera below basar, o litzli shar lecharchila b'kriya ktsat. All right, so but if it's by itself or you're roasting it, then you just need a little bit of ripping. V'tama dechmiru ba im basar. So why were they so strict when you cook it with basar? Lefisha shetama chalav nichnas basar umishtanet tam basar aviesh bo tam basar bechalav. Right, because now
this is kind of what I was saying before. I think this is similar to what we saw, the first opinion.
Was the rush, wasn't it? In the name of the Tosfot?
Right. Yeah, the first Rosh. Before, right. B'Shema Tosfot v'Rosh v'tama mishum tama basar hanivla b'chalav shebekachal. Right, the meat flavor going in. Maybe actually it's a different opinion. Maybe it's not. Maybe I was reading in maybe I was explaining the Rosh as though he's following the Tom, Rabbeinu Tam, and maybe he's not. Maybe it's a different idea.
Yeah.
Maybe the Rosh was really the idea of the Gumot, and this is Rabbeinu Tam. So what is Rabbeinu Tam saying again? He's saying, read that again, what you just read.
Let's see, let me start from the let's see. Okay. Aval liktira below vasar o litzli shari lecharchila b'kriya ktsat. Okay, that was all that. Ima basar. So why it's so strict when if it's with basar, you got to do more cutting and pressing. Lefisha tam halav nichnas basar umishtane tam basar v'yesh bo tam basar b'chalav.
In other words, it changed the flavor because now new meat came in. Aval, keep going.
Aval כשאין בשר עם הכחל, כיוון שקראו קצת, מותר לכאכילה משום דאין החלב בעינו, right? עוד, בכחל כמו שהיה קודם.
You've gotten out most of the kachal. It's almost as though it's like a balloon. You cut it, and even a little bit of a cutting will get the major percentage of the milk out of it. So it's reduced now.
Even though it goes out and it comes back and it's absorbed in the kachal. Lo gazru bechachamim kevan shelo nishtanet tamo shel kachal mimei bliazo uvdiavad shari afilu lo krao klal.
So even though it reabsorbs its own milk, but that doesn't cause a change in the flavor, and therefore it's not like basar b'chalab. Basar b'chalab is when a new flavor comes in. Here it's just its original flavor. So it didn't change.
You were saying that before, Rev.
That's what I was saying before. Sometimes I get confused, and I was giving you advance notice of the explanation of the Reiner Tom before we saw it. But yeah, this is, I guess, because I like this explanation. The Reiner Tom really, that makes the most sense to me. In other words, what is the nature of the gezerah? The gezerah is when the new meat comes in, but when the same meat comes in, what did he say? Shelo nishtana tamo shel kachal mipnei bli azo. This, its own internal milk doesn't change its flavor. So therefore, they didn't go around that. As long as you did some kind of deference to the rabbis by doing at least a little bit of kriya and getting most of the milk out.
Yeah.
Ubidiyevit.
I gotta find Chachamim Shlishna Tamosho Gacham Blia Diavad Share Afilu Lo Kra'o Klal, right? And so, but Diavad, even if you didn't rip it, this is when it's cooking by itself again.
Right, because no new flavor came in.
Ve'en chiluk ben tzli l'kedera below basar. De'en shum tam la'kel b'tzli yoter yoter. De b'tzli nami notefa chalav v'nofela kachal mibachutz. Right. So tzli is the same thing as here. There's no reason to be more makil about tzli because you still have the milk will come out and get the outside and come back in kind of or be reabsorbed. So ve'achi perisho kachal kor'o umotzi et chalbo. Right. And so this is when it says the Perusho kachal koro masiat chabo perush sheti ve'erev v'tachu b'kotel kind of farish b'gemara, right? When it says
you don't have to translate, just read a little bit.
Okay. Umoki la Rabbi Elazar l'ktera v'hainu im basar kidi brishit, right? Lo kra'o perush lo asa din kriya shelo kra'o sheti ve'erev v'tachu b'kotel ela kriya kitzat eno over. Amarav, now Eno Aver, new term. Eno Aver, Amarav, Eno Aver Alav, Umotar, Kevan Krao Kitsat, Aval Imlo Krao Klal, Vishlo Behade Basar, Asur Midrabanan, Kedamrino Perikiran Asher, Kechal Bashishim, Dechalav Shkuta Asur Midrabanan. Ketzad Koro, Amanitin Kai, Amarli Rabbi Elazar, Karali, Perush Kriya Kitsat.
So when Rabbi Elazar said Karali, and roast it. Perush kriya ktsat.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Ana echol b'ktirav below vasar. Right. V'kamash malan.
And that's when he said he doesn't mean to roast it. Then he meant to cook it in a pot without meat, and that's the Reiner Tom's point that you can cook it in a pot without meat. That's the way he reads the Gemara. The lo ba'ina sheti be'erev el l'kedera im basar. Go ahead.
Amalu Rav Nachman, Zvikula Kachle, right? Perush, Bishlula below Vasar, right?
So when he said to give to Yalta, that was the Gemara. He said to give to Yalta the kachal so she could taste milk and meat. What did it mean? Zvikula kachla. What did it mean? Perush.
Cook by itself.
Bashlula below basar. Kachle nefuchim,
right? Blowing up, like uncut.
An uncut kachal. It's nafuach. It's large. Kinodot.
Perush shaloni kra'u sheti ve'erev. Ela kriya kitzat. So he means cut it a little bit, but don't Give.
All right. Well, we can stop here. Basically, just going through the Gemara and showing how Rabbeinu Tam learns the whole Gemara. All right. Let's take a break now. We'll come back in 5 minutes. Okay, let's start learning. Come back if you're around. Okay, welcome. All right, I want to do a little bit more piece of the tour, and then we'll go to the Shulchan Aruch. So skip ahead. In my tour, it had a little bet with a parentheses bet in it, like Sif bet in the tour. Give me a thumbs up if you found it. It says Kvar Nahagu Shelo Levash Lo Klal Min Basar. Yeah, great. Shama, you got it? Okay. Okay, so I'll read a little bit. Kvar Nahagu Shelo Levash Lo Klal Im Basar Afilu B'Kriya V'Shati V'Erev V'Ticho B'Kotel. Even if you did everything, still don't cook it. Va'afilu im mivashlo, even though the Rebbeinu Tam said for sure you could. Va'afilu im bashlo b'kedera levado matzri kriya v'ticha v'shetiyeh hakedera miyuchedet lekach. You need a special pot for your kachal cooking. So basically, the only way you can cook kachal in a pot is by doing the full kriya sheti v'erev v'tacha b'kotel, and then you can only cook it levad, and you have to have your only pot. So look at the Beit Yosef. So v'zel lashon smak. See where it says Masha katav kfar nagu shelo levashlo klal basar. That's bet. V'zel lashon smak. V'katvu ha'u hagahot maimoniyot b'perek tet. V'hine ha'olam nagu shelo levashel kachal im basar klal. Afilu b'kriya sheti v'erev v'tika b'kotel. Even if you did all of the preparation. V'tzarich yun al minhag. The lechara muterhu l'kol perushim. However you can explain the Gemara, it should come out that this is muter. Mihu ki midumeli sheshamati mimori. I heard from my teacher Harav Rabbi Yechiel sheyesh l'smoke minhag haolam leperush Rashi shepiresh. The Kedera shezkir b'Talmud, that when it said in the Kedera, Gabi Kachal, Kriya Sheti Ve'er b'Tachal B'Kotel, Hainu the Kedera below Basar. That meant the Kedera with low Basar. Hilchach l'fi zeh lo matzinu shum heter im Basar. According to that, we never found anybody saying, according to Rashi, nobody in the Gemara permitted you to cook it with Basar. They were only talking about without Basar. Now, we, of course, read Rashi in the tour, so we already know this. In other words, it's a little bit strange that he says maybe you can support this minhag on Rashi. Well, yeah, we just read the tour, and that's. But I think he's quoting the Smak, and maybe the Smak, of course, didn't see the tour. Okay, so he's saying there is actually a parish, and it's Rashi. So that's why the minhag. So the minhag is like Rashi. Where was I? Lo matzinu shum heter im basar b'shum inyan, in any way. V'gam haya omer mehai taima, and for the same reason we should say nagu shelo levashel b'kedera klal. You shouldn't cook it in any pot. Why? Afilu below basar, even without any meat. Why? Lefish sofa levashel basar b'kedera. Because tomorrow or an hour later, you're going to cook some meat in it, and now this pot has the absorbed kachal, and it's like you're cooking kachal in meat. Kemo kachal in basar. It's like you're cooking milk kachal with meat, because this is a meaty pot, obviously, and you cook the kachal, and a minute later, you're going to cook some meat in it. So it's going to be like you cooked it with meat. Vaya omer ki kvar hayu noagim liyot lehem kedera miuchedet lekachal. So if you want to be a kachal eater, you got to have a special pot for cooking kachal. That's the minhag. Levado. Umiu ein l'smoch achshav al zeh shein regilim bekachal kol kach ata. But don't really rely on this because we're not normal. We don't normally eat kachal. Hilchach ikele mechash dilma ati le meti levashel achar kach basar ba'oto kedera. Even if you have a separate pot, you have a problem because maybe you'll forget and you use the same pot for meat. Mihu pshat hetero lechatcho b'sakin. But this is permitted. You could cut it with a knife, a fleshik knife, afilu b'shakachal roteach, even when it's still hot. Kevan shikar osheti va'erev v'tachal v'kotel. Once if you've cooked it, if before you cooked it, you did all the proper processing. Now you could cut it with a knife. V'chotchin b'otos sakin basar acharkach. But you could cook it with, you could use that same knife for other meat. Because the knife, I mean, I would say because the knife is like already klisheni. It's not like you're not cooking with it.
I think he's going to have a different explanation though, isn't he? He's going to say for a different reason.
V'tzarich, all right, let's see. V'tzarich in my shna mikidera, but I don't understand why is it a different kedera below basar? Why is that permitted, but you can't cook it in a kedera below basar? I mean, you could also another question: how do you get this hot kachal if you can't cook it in a kedera? It must be by roasting it. Maybe by roasting is the only way. So you could roast it and then you could cut it. I mean, by the way, it's going to come out that the kachal is just like chicken liver. It's like livers. Nobody cooks a liver even by itself in a pot. So it's going to have basically the same din as liver. So he says, "B'tzarich ian ma'ishna mikidera below basar shechmiru shelo levashel basar acharav." That they were strict about the pot. Wait, again, sorry. V'tzarich iyu ma'ishna mikidera below basar shechmiru shelo levashel basar acharav. If you so now he's saying you actually cook in a pot, but you can't cook afterwards. V'shema ma shechmiru b'kedera ein ze mishum basar shachar kach. Maybe the reason that they're saying you need a separate pot is not because of cooking meat afterward. El gezera dilma ati levashel basar ima kachal b'yachad. Maybe that's the real reason. We're worried that you're going to cook meat with the kachal, which you're not allowed to do. So therefore, we have a special pot that only is for kachal. So you'll remember, don't put any meat in this pot, and then you'll never cook kachal with meat. But you never cook on a sakin. You don't cook with a knife. But he still doesn't quite understand it. Ad kan sham. All that is if I'm not mistaken, all that is the smak. Or hagot maimaniot. Either way, he's quoting, maybe it's hagot maimaniot quoting the smak. Okay, so that's wait, I didn't quite get, are you allowed to use it in a pot by itself? Are you allowed to have a separate pot for kachal? You seem to say you are and then say you're not. He seems to go back and forth a little bit. What do you say, Joel?
You seem to say you are, but since we don't really do this anymore, then you can't because then you're going to get confused about this whole minhag.
Right. But then he talks about the knife and he says you could really. So it's kind of wishy-washy. Okay, let's go to the Shulchan Aruch.
Also, could it be because with knives we already have this previously mentioned tradition that we have a separate set of knives? We have a milk knife with a that we've carved something.
No, but his question is why not have a kachal knife?
But what I mean, as opposed to pots, but I'm saying the mitziyut is that the pots, we already have this idea of we've got your ben yomo pot and your eino ben yomo pot, and that was pretty much, we didn't have necessarily two totally separate, like in our modern wealthy society where we have two of everything. You'd have just the yesterday pot and the today pot, right? So in that mindset, though, would you might be more careful or have a different sort of ruling around pots than you would necessarily around knives, where you already have this notion of we have separate knives for things. And yes, it might say you should have a separate. I understand,
but you have separate knives for things and you have separate pots for things. So why is it any different?
The difference is with pots, you don't have you have a today pot and a yesterday pot. You don't necessarily have separate pots, as opposed to knives where you've got your milchig pot, your milchig knife, and your fleshig knife.
No. They had separate pots. Ever since the Gemara was written, we have separate pots. We don't use weights. You can't use the same pot waiting 24 hours. Nobody did that. B'di'evid, if you cook by mistake in the wrong pot, then b'di'evid, you could eat the meat, but you still have to kasher the pot. I think we're going to learn, and maybe even next week, we're going to learn that you're not allowed to have in your house, you have to have in your house separate kelim, including pots. You're not allowed to have a pot for both milk and meat. Not allowed to do that. So okay. Anyway, but there are people that have separate kelim for liver. There's many different opinions about liver, and one opinion is that you have to have the middle opinion. This is a very machmir opinion. This is a very makel opinion. The middle opinion is have separate roasting iron, like a grill, separate grill for liver, and don't use any other meat other than your liver. On that grill is a liver grill. And that's actually the most common practice, I believe. To have a special cleave for liver. So it's the same thing with kachal, separate cleave for kachal. Not very relevant nowadays. Funny, there's something called Morav Yerushalmi, which is a dish in Jerusalem, a mixture of all kinds of meats. It's not very popular anymore. It's interesting. It used to be quite popular. Now it's much more popular to have just shawarma, but Morav Yerushalmi was a mixture of all kinds of things, and one of them was liver. But you had to roast the liver and then mix it with all the other meats, because once you've roasted it, you can mix it now with the other meats. But then the mashkichim said it's forbidden because they're afraid that people won't roast the liver correctly. So they used I think it's in Hebrew, what is it? Tchol, right? The word is tchol. They use tchol, which is kidney, I think. They use kidneys because the whole idea of Mirav Yerushalmi is to have organ meat. So they use a different organ meat. It's actually quite tasty, but if you get over the grossness of it.
Tchol is what you remove when people have gaucher. What is it called in English?
Spleen.
Spleen, yeah. That's
What do you say? It's what they remove when they have what?
The Gaucher disease. My father, Rava Shalom, has the Gaucher.
What is Gaucher disease?
It's Ashkenazi disease, genetic disease.
Oh.
Yeah.
I should not know about it. I don't know about it.
You should not have it. Nobody should have it.
Yes. Okay. So spleen. Yeah, it's not kidney. It's spleen. Okay. So here, Shammai, you want to read the Shulchan Aruch Tzadi?
Sure.
Oh, before you read the Shulchan Aruch, I want to do unusual thing. Let's first read the Shach Aleph.
Okay. Hakachal ad sof haseif over there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Hakachal ad sof haseif hu lashon harambam perek tet milchot machalot asurot. So he's telling us he's going to quote the Rambam from the 9th chapter of Machalot Asurot.
In other words, if you read this, the whole first sif is just the Rambam.
Yeah. והרב בהגה, סעיף ב' חולק בהרבה דינים, but Rama, he argues and he disagrees in many of these halachot, ולא כתב בלשון יש אומרים, אלא סידר ספרתו הכל ביחד כדי לקצר.
Right. He's not going to interrupt. Normally you would see after a certain statement, then the Ramah jumps in and says, no, this I don't agree with, or this is how we do it. And then another statement, and then he would jump in. Instead of jumping in the middle, he held his breath, didn't interrupt until the end. And then in the end, he just gives a whole spiel. But it's also interesting to me that the truth is when I really read it, in my preparation before reading the Shach, I've read it many times, but I read it again and I read it and I was thinking, wow, the lashon, the way he writes it is so clear and beautiful. I'm not used to that in the Shulchan Aruch. And then I read this Shach and I say, oh, it's the Rambam. Because the Rambam is just an excellent author. Nobody compares. There is no Rishon or that writes as well as the Rambam. And probably no, except for Moshe Rabbeinu, nobody, He just writes beautifully. So I'm giving you a beautiful piece of Hebrew to read. Go ahead, Shammai.
הכחל אסור מדברי סופרים. שאין בשר שנתבשל בחלב שחוטה אסור מן התורה. So the other is
But first, he gives you the principle. The principle is, first of all, you should know kachal is only a Rabbanan. Because why? Because it's basar shchuta. It's chalav shchuta.
and חלב שחוטה is only מדרבנן and not דאורייתא. לפיכך, אם קראו מרק החלב שבו מותר. So if you tear it and you I guess this is what he calls pressing, merek, I guess.
You remove. Well, he's actually giving a perush, right? You remove merek. You make it empty. You empty out the milk.
Then it's mutar. מותר לצלתו ולאכלו. Therefore you can roast it and eat it. ואם קראו שתי וערב ותאכלו בכותל, but if you tear it and then you press it against the wall, עד שלא נשאר בו לחלוכית חלב, מותר לבשלו עם הבשר. So if you've done all this process, then and that makes sure that there is not even any moisture of meat left, then I'm sorry, moisture of milk, then you can cook it with the meat.
So who is this like? Like which parish is this like? Like we've seen before? I'll give you a hint. We just saw it.
This is the Tosfot.
Well, specifically, Rabbeinu Tam. This is not Rashi. This is Rabbeinu Tam. This is the same, and as the Rambam and Rabbeinu Tam are on the same page. I can't say that the Rambam is paskening like Rabbeinu, like Rabbeinu Tam, but that would be anachronistic. But okay, go on. Or maybe not anachronistic, but at least unlikely. I don't know, right? Rabbeinu Tam, the Rambam is actually quite late. Is actually he died in 1205.
Yeah, they're contemporaries. Actually,
Yeah.
they don't know each other, but they're contemporaries.
They don't know each other exactly. It's not.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, he's agreeing with Rabbeinu Tam whether he knows it or not.
Yeah. וכחל שלא קראו, but if you didn't tear the udder, בן של קטנה שלא הניקה בן של גדולה, אסור לבשלו. Then it doesn't matter whether it's lactating or not lactating. אסור, you're forbidden to cook it. ואם עבר ובשלו בפני עצמו, מותר. But בדיעבד, if you cooked it by itself with no meat, מותר לאוכלו. Then you can eat it. ואם בשלו עם בשר אחד, אחר, לא. אם בשלו עם בשר אחר,
אם עבר בשלו בפני עצמו, מותר לאוכלו, right.
Right.
If you cook it by itself, then it's mutter, even though what? Even though you didn't do what?
You didn't do the pressing and the
right
and the cutting, yeah.
Well, you didn't do the cutting, just the cutting. By the way, what does it mean? The first cutting was cutting and emptying it. In other words, you got to imagine that the chachal is like a special kind of sponge. It's like a sponge which has like a pocket in the middle of it full of milk, but it's also a sponge and also a pocket. So you cut it, and then most of the milk comes out. That's what the Rambam seems to be saying. You cut it, is that once cut, it gets most of the milk out. And then the pressing is getting the sponginess, getting all the rest of the rest of the milk out. But if you just cut it,
so
again, kachal shelo karo bein shokatan. You didn't cut it. Asur lebashlo ve'im avar asur lebashlo ve'im avar bashlo b'fnei atzmo. You didn't cut it at all, but you cooked it by itself. Muter lochlo. You could eat it.
ואם בשלו עם בשר אחר, משארים אותו ב-60, וכחל מן המניין. But if you cooked it with other meat, then it's batter ב-60 and the kachal itself is included to get to the 60.
Yeah.
כיצד? אם היה הכל עם הכחל כמו 60 בכחל, הכחל אסור והשאר מותר. So if it's 60 times the kachal, if the whole mixture with the kachal is in the ratio of 60-1,
which means that's kachal min minyan. Im hakachal kamo shishim. Im hakol im hakachal kamo shishim. If the whole mixture is a total of 60 versus the kachal, in other words, with the kachal, kamo shishim b'kachal is 60 times the size of. If the whole mixture is 60 times the size of the kachal, then the kachal is aser v'ashar muter. V'im haya b'pachot mishishim then akol asur. Ben kach uben kach. Im nafal kedera acheret. Also ota. It forbids the other one. What does it mean? Ben kach uben kach.
Whether it's the included the shishim or whether it's 60-1 with the kachal or without the kachal. That's how I understand it. He gave two options here. One was if it's shishim b'kachal, there's 60 times the kachal, or if there's less than 60 times the kachal. So ben kach, but whether it's this way or that way, if you're talking about the different kedera, then it's asur. Then that kedera becomes asur.
In other words, im haya im akachal kamo shishim b'kachal akol akachal asur and the vashar mutar. V'im pachot b'shishim, then everything is asur. And in either case, if the kachal falls into another pot, ben kach uben kach, the kachal is going to be asur. Because why? Because you didn't do kriya v'sheti be'erev and you cooked it with meat. Ben kach uben kach im nafal kedera acheret oser oto u'misharin bo b'shishim. And here's the word kibirishona, like at the beginning. That's what we saw also in the tour, kibirishona. V'akachal atzmo shenitbashel nase. Why? I think why is it kibirishona? Shakachal atzmo shenitbashel nase kechaticha asura. It's like it became chanan. In other words, it don't say that it's mutter the second time because it already lost its milk. You don't measure it except, you only measure it the way it is at the time of cooking. What does that mean?
When you're doing the measurement, whether there's 60 times it or not, whether you have basa b'shishim, you look at the amounts at what point? At the point of while it's being cooked in it. But
and not
before it fell into the
because what happened? Because it burst in the cooking process.
Yeah.
It was bigger before, it got smaller. Read the Ramah.
הרמה. הגה, ויש אומרים, לאם נפל תחילה לגזירה שאין בה 60 ונעשה הכחל, אם נפל אחר כך לגזירה אחרת, אין הכחל מצטרף ל-60, וכן עיקר. So he's more machmir.
More machmir, which we said. What is he implying that the Ramah, that the Mechaber was saying? What was the din of the Mechaber then? He says you need bein bashishim nesar kachal. Wait, yesh omrim she'im nafal techila lekedera she'ein bashishim v'nesar kachal. In other words, actually, it would be aser. So in one of those two cases, the Rama brought, or the Mechaber brought two cases. Either case, the Chachal was Aser. But he says, if it was the case where there wasn't Shishim, then you need 60 and not 59. Implication that the Mechaber was saying, you need only 59 even there.
Yeah. Even when
the piece was usher because there was only 10 pieces of meat there. There weren't even enough. There weren't even 59. There weren't enough. There were 58. There were 10. Now the kakal is really usher. But you still only need 59, says the Ramah. You still only need 59, says the Mechaber. And the Ramah says, no, yesh omrim, and that's the ikar, that you need 60 in that case. Okay, so with that background, Let's look at Taz Dalid. Maybe Noam, you want to read Taz Dalid?
Sure. Umisharin bo b'shishim kevarishona.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's quoting the Machaber, saying if it falls into another pot, it forbids everything, and we count it again as part of the 60. It's part of the minyan. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Mashma. Sorry, 1 second. Let me just move this window so I can see everything. Mashma, afilu im nafal tchila bepachot mishishim, have kivat chila letaref gam hakral. This means that if it first falls into a pot of less than 60, then you nonetheless count the klal as part of the minyan.
Wait a second. Mashma, wait, I got to read that again. Mashma, afilu im nafal techila bepachot mishishim. In other words, it fell into a pot of only 10, let's say. And so therefore it's aser. Have kibbut techila, it's considered now like techila when it falls into a new pot, when it falls into a second pot, litzaref gama kachal. They only need 59. Just like the diuk that the Ramah made. Now, the Taz is making the same diuk that the Ramah is making, that according to the Shulchan Aruch, even though the piece is really, this is sort of illogical, the piece is like fully usher because there weren't 60 to mevatel it, but we still are going to have the kula of 59.
Okay. V'kach ketav b'sefer bedek habayit lehara'a dechol ne'asar me'oto kchal havidina hachi shehu mitztaref אחר כך ל-60 שלא יהא סופו חמור מתחילתו. And this is what it says in the Bedek Habayit, that everything that's forbidden from this chal, its ruling is thus because it's going to join up later with the 60 because its end shouldn't be more severe than its beginning.
Right. There's the original, we can't create an Isser that's bigger than the original Isser. So, for example, in my case, the kachal falls in, let's say the kachal falls into 9. So now you've got a pot of 10 units. Now the 10 units fall into, well, if they fall into 600 units, then it's all mutter, obviously. What if it doesn't fall into 600 units? What if it falls into 590 units? So now all the 10 that are usher actually get the din of kachal in the sense that they mitztaref to the heter. So if those 10 now fell into 590, so the sachar kol, you have the total is 600. So it's going to be mutter. That's what the Ramah is. That's what the Bedek Habayit, the Ra'ah is saying. Right? That's what he used. I'm just emphasizing the word hakol. He says, right? The kol hane'asar, all of what is forbidden, me'oto chaticha, not just the chaticha itself, everything has this din of 59. Now I ask a question: why can't the sof be more strict than the tchila? We see that all the time. We have chanan. We have a drop of milk falls into a drop of meat, and now we need more. And then if that falls into another pot of meat, now you need against all the new mixture, and it could go ad infinitum. Or is that different? Is that not the same as being more machmir? Maybe that's different because there, the ratio is still the same. It's just that we have chanan. Here, not only do we have chanan, but we don't want to make the ratio different. But Joel,
I think it depends if you say there's chanan b'shari surim or not, right? If it's
wait, we're going to get there. Yeah, we're going to get there. Okay. But right now, I'm not asking the question. Okay. So that's what he says. He says the end can't be more strict than the beginning. So it's kind of a weird idea because you might have said, no, now that it's all usher totally. When the kachal first fell in, it was a mutter thing. So maybe that's why it counted both ways. But now that it's usher, Maybe it has a different din. He says, no, can't be more strict. All right, go on. V'yesh omrim.
יש אומרים של רמה שהוא הרשב"א, אסיר עלי דכל שנפלה בפחות מ-60, נעשה גם ההתר חתיכת נבלה, דהה עשוהו רבנן כבשר בחלב, ובשר בחלב לדברי הכל נעשה נבלה.
In other words, the rabbis, this is going back to what I was saying in the very beginning of the class an hour and a half ago, that how did the rabbis make the gezerah? So he says like this: the rabbis didn't just make a marit ayin gezerah, like the Ran says. They made it like basar b'chal. They made the milk basar, the chalav shchuta, to be equivalent to milk, and therefore we have to treat it in every way like milk, and therefore we have chanan. And now all the 10 became usher 100%, not 59, not 59 out of 60, but 100%. The divrei hakol, and after all, it's basar b'chalav. And even if you're going to tell me, Rabbeinu, it's shar isurim, no, it's not shar isurim. It's basar b'chalav. Okay, so that's the Ramah says. The Ramah says, and you, the Mechaber, should agree with me, right? Theoretically, because it's basar b'chalav. Ad kan. Go ahead.
Ad kan.
Oh, Alkane. Sorry, Alkane.
Alkane. צריך אחר כך 60 נגד הקל, והקל אינו מצטרף. כך כתב בתורת. I have Taf Hey. It should say...
Torah Tabayit HaAroch.
Torah Tabayit HaAroch. I thought it was Torah Chatat for a second because we were talking about the Ramah, but he's just quoting the Rashba, I guess. Shar Rishon Beveit HaRovet. Okay. וכתב ביוסף שהר"ן סביר עלי כרמב"ם, ובתורת חטאת חולק עליו דאדרבה.
Now we're back to the Ramah. In other words, the Ran, the Beit Yosef says that the Ran agrees with the Rambam. We're about to see about what. He's going to quote it. But the Torah Chatat cholek alav. He doesn't agree. He says no. The Ran does not agree with the Rambam. The Adarabba.
The Adarabba, midnatan haran tam kevan she'ein asur hakal rak mishum marit ayin, alken eno oser bishni'a yoter mibarishona. Mashma de lo mayri, mashma de lo mayri rak ben nafal leshishim. אז אין אכל אסורה רק משום מראית עין, אבל אם נפל בפחות מ-60, דנאסר מדינה מכוח הבישול בחלב, שאחר כך נעשה כנבלה ואינה מצטרפת. Okay, so if I understood correctly, let me see if I'm going to get this right. The Beit Yosef is trying to enlist the help of the Ran, saying, okay, the Ran says this is all Marid Ain, so even if we do Hanan as part of the first mixture, when it's going to join into the second mixture, the Gzera isn't going to get more Chamor, right? But the Ramah is actually saying, no, you're actually misreading the Ran, because he says the Gzera for Marid Ain is true of the first mixture, but once it actually mixes into it,
no. The Marit Ayin, he distinguishes between the two cases that the Shulchan Aruch brings. The Shulchan Aruch brings a case where there is 60 or there isn't 60. And in either case, the Kachal is Aser. But in one of the cases, it's Aser Medina, and in one of the other cases, it's Aser Marit Ayin.
Mm-hmm.
Which case is which? So if there is 60, then it's Aser because of Marit Ayin. It really should be Mutter. The fact that we say that the Ran said, that's the only place that the Ran Svara makes sense. The Ran Svara doesn't make sense when there's, let's say, 10 against it. When there's 10 against it, then it's Aser Medina. And there, the Ran wasn't, his whole reason of Maritayin the Ran wasn't talking about that case. Says the, and therefore, he actually agrees with the Ramah against the Rambam that says in all cases it continues with 59. But he realized what he's doing here. He's assuming what he's trying to prove, right? Because he's assuming that the reason of Marit Ayin can't apply in both cases, and therefore it doesn't apply in both cases. In other words, just say no, Marit Ayin applies in both cases, and then he does agree. That's the way the Beit Yosef learns it. The Marit Ayin applies in both cases, and therefore you see that he holds like the Rambam. And he's saying, no, obviously, the Marit Ayin only applies in a case where there was 60 and it should have been mutter. And then the only reason we forbid it was because of Marit Ayin. And that's the only place where it applies. And therefore he makes that distinction between the two, between the case of where it's really usher and where it's not really usher. Okay. So that's so he says the Ran really agrees with the Ramah, says the Ramah. Sorry for cutting you off.
Okay. No, that was very, very helpful. Thank you. Should I keep going?
Yeah.
The Kerashba Mishum Hachi. No, that doesn't make sense.
Go
here.
back a little bit. Go back.
Then it's
Aval
im nafal befachot meshishim דנאסר מדינה מכוח הבישול בחלב, שאחר כך נעשה כנבלה ואינה מצטרפת. Right, so that's the Ramah trying to now, he's saying the Ran actually agrees with him.
Right.
Okay. The Kirashba, and then
I think the Kirashba goes with the previous, right? And like the Rashba, right? Against the Ra'ah.
Right.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you. Yeah. Like the Ramah and the Rashba and supposedly the Ran. Okay. And then this is Mishum Chachi then. Mishum Chachi Pasak Torat Chatat. And that's what the Ramah wrote. Okay. The Khan B'Shulchan Aruch Kerashba Uvelevush Hevia Yesh Omrim Lahachmir Afilu Behayabo Shishim Latrich Achar Kach Shishim Below Kal. ואין זה עיקר דבזה מודה רמה דקל מצרף כיוון שלא נעשה רק מראית עין. Sorry, I'm trying to understand this.
He just says, and this is why the Ramah paskined like the Rashba and like his understanding of the Ran, lahachmir, to be machmir, afilu hayabo shishim, that even if they're lahachmir, afilu behaya.
I think there's three different thoughts, Rav Nachum, right? At this point, there's the never always only needing 59. The Ramah says no, if it was Asur in the first, if it was not 60 in the first case, the second falling in needs 60. And then there's Lavush who says actually, even though the first time you cook the chachal with basar, you need only 59 because the chachal counts. Any subsequent time it never counts, even if it was 59 against. Right.
I'm sorry. I was reading. You're right. I skipped over. In other words, and therefore the Ramah paskins the way he paskined, like the Rashba, like the way he understands the Ran, which is to differentiate between the two cases. And then he goes on. Then the Taz goes on, and he says in the Levush.
Could I just ask a question? You're saying the Ramah paskins like the Rashba. The first three words, Vekan b'Shulchan Aruch ke Rashba, that's referring to the Ramah in the Shulchan Aruch, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah, Kan Bishul, not the Shulchan Aruch. Here in the Shulchan Aruch, because he was before quoting the Torah's Chatat, and that's also the Ramah. But he's saying here he also pasked like that, the way he did over there, like the Shulchan Aruch, Kirashba, and like the Ran, that it depends on which case, how the Kachal became Aser. Was it 60 or was it not 60? And then he says, Ubelavush, thank you, Joe. Ubelavush, and now Lavush has a whole different opinion. Ubelavush hevi hayesh omrim. Lahachmir afilu bahayabo shishim. He says, no, even if there was shishim, lahatzrik lacharkach shishim. In other words, even when there was 60 or 70 or whatever, but the kachal at the end of the day was usher, now the second time around, you're going to need 60, like we would have presumed, really. You need 60 below a kachal, without the kachal. Don't count the kachal towards the 60. Ve'ein ze ikar, but that's not the true halacha. The bezeh modeh ramah, the kachal mitztaref kevan shelo ne'asar rak machmat marit ayin. And now he says like this. So he says, He says, but don't go like the Levush. What we just now read, it says, don't go like the Levush. The Ramah is correct, or because it's or whatever. The Ramah doesn't agree with Levush. Ume'achshav nolad lanu machloket chadasha ben Rambam leRashba. Achshav, he says, now we have a new machloket which we never knew about between the Rambam and the Rashba. Mashelo huskar b'poskim dahainu. It never was mentioned before. Dahainu la Rambam lo amrinan. Afilu, yeah, for me it's the next page. Lo amrinan afilu bebasar b'chalav shehu midrabanan haticha atzmanan se nevela. Okay, so what is that's the chiddush. That again, the Rambam we don't say even in basar b'chalav. Now the Rambam holds like Rabbeinu Ephraim. This is where we're getting the interesting part. I always think this is the most interesting part because we're getting away from kachal and we're talking about theoretical questions of basar b'chalav. And we know that Rabbeinu Ephraim holds only, say, Hanan in basar b'chalav, but we paskin, the Ashkenazim paskin, that even in Bishar Isurim, there's Hanan. And the Rambam is obviously not an Ashkenazi, so he holds, like Rabbeinu Ephraim, that, like the Shulchan Aruch, that there's no Hanan in Shar Isurim. But what about in basar b'chalav? There is. But what about basar b'chalav? That's derabanan, rabbinic basar b'chalav. Is that like Shar Isurim, or is that got a din of normal basar b'chalav? Very good question. So he says, "Hainu la Rambam lo amrinan afilu b'basar b'chalav shehu midrabanan hatichad atzman asay nevela." We don't say Hanan if it's rabbinic basar b'chalav. V'ken katav Beit Yosef b'shmo v'simen tzadi tet v'diver hamatchil katav Rambam b'perek tet vav b'ilchot ma'achot asuro. So the Beit Yosef is aware of this, and he paskined it over there in Simen tzadi tet. Ketzad v'chule ketzad chalav shenafal l'kedera sheyesh bo basar of. What about chalav that mixed with chicken or bird, which is only rabbinic, but natan tam b'kedera, and it actually gives flavor? Mar be'alav basar of. You can add more chicken. Oh, we learned that before. You can add more chicken because anyway, it's not really Hanan. Nothing really happened. He didn't have Hanan. Adkan. V'harei afilu laharbot biyadayim etir. He went even further. Not only did he say, he even said you could add with your hand, you could physically change it, which is like mevatli and isser latchila, but it's because it's only Rabbanan, there was no isser really there. But the Rashba disagrees. The Rashba afilu im nafal memela achar kach basar of, even if it fell by itself, chicken, lo mehani the chaticha atzman aseh nevela. Even if new chicken came, even if you didn't do it with your hands, but it fell off the shelf, and now there's more chicken. It's 60 chicken against the milk. But it was already Hanan. So the Rashba is more strict. Lefi mashe pasach Rama. Oh, sorry. Ulefi mashe pasach Rama akan kirashba nimsa lididan. So it comes out according to us, we're Ashkenazim, and we hold like the Rashba, the Kaimelan Kirabeinu Ephraim, and we hold a Shar Isurim. There is Hanan in Shar Isurim. Amrina B'kol Isurim Nase Nevela. Afilu B'Isur D'Rabbanan Ayin Sim Tzadi. So he says like this, it's going to come out according to us that even if it's Shar Isurim, like some kind of Isur D'Rabbanan, Joel, give me an Isur D'Rabbanan that's not Basar B'Chalav.
Shuman Agid. That's an Isur.
All right, Shuman Agid. Okay. Right. Shuman Agid falls into my pot. Now, it's not only is it Shar Isurim, but it's Isur D'Rabbanan. Even there, we're going to say Hanan. It's a very important point. Yeah? Versteht? Everybody, questions? Everyone got what I'm saying?
I guess the Taz is assuming the position of Rebbe Akiva about chicken and dairy rather than Chachamim, because Tosfot, right, read the Chachamim as saying that chicken and dairy is the oraita, and I guess we.
No. That was a way out opinion that I wanted to show you.
Oh,
That
no one goes. No one actually thinks that.
No one holds like that. That's just we're choshesh a little bit too. That's why we treat chicken a little bit stricter because of that opinion, but we don't actually hold that opinion. That's why we treat chicken a little bit stricter. So that's a very interesting diuk that we're learning. Okay, now in the few minutes that we have, let's look at the Chidushei Rabbi Akiva Eger. Look at the Rabbi Akiva Eger. He's going to say, he's going to actually quote his father. This is the only place that I know of that he quotes his father, whose name was Wolf as a first name. His first name was Wolf. So here, look at Bet. You see where it says Mashma Afilu. By me, it's Bet. I don't know if by everybody it's Bet. It says Mashma Afilu im nafal tchila b'pachot mishishim v'chulei l'tzaref kama kachal. You see that? Give me a thumbs up if you got that.
How far is it from the beginning of Rabbi Akiva Eger?
I think it's right in the beginning.
It's like a line or two down. It's not very far.
Oh, okay.
You guys don't have the bets. You don't have the numbers, the letters. But it says, yeah, there's the first dark one and then the second one. Mashma afilu im nafal. We have thumbs up? Yeah. Caleb, you got it? Yeah, okay. So it says like this. Mashma afilu im nafal techila b'pachot mishishim. In other words, if the first mixture was 60, was only 10, tzaref gama chachal in the second mixture. Kach he'ela b'dat ha'mechaber de be'isr d'rabanan lo amrinan chaticha nase nevela mishum hachi gam kishenafal l'kedera acheret ha'chachal min haminyan. Because there's no chanan here. Because even though it's milk and meat, there's no chanan here. Because it's a isr d'rabanan. And that's why he wrote Shematzri Shishim below Kachal Mishum de Savar.
Isn't it Lahaga? Isn't it
according to the sorry, Vilahaga, sorry. Vilahaga, now there's the Ramah. Sorry, thank you. I'm getting a little bit tired. Vilahaga, the Ramah says Shematzri Shishim below Kachal, not like him. Mishum de Savar. The call is Surah Rabbanan Amrinan Katikana say Nevela. That's basically a summary of what we just said in the Taz. Vilanias daiti Yira de lo muchach midi. This is not true. Everything you just said. Lo muchach midi me'amechaber de yesh lomar da mechaber verama l'taimayihu azli. They're going according to their own opinions that we already know about. V'hu b'ma depligi od b'hai dat ha mechaber karama the bishul kedera lechude. Sorry, the bishul kedera lechude b'diavad af below kriya shari. That they argue about what the Rambam holds. Ubedat ha-Rama the asur. In other words, the Mechaber holds the dat ha-Mechaber ka-Rambam. The dat of the Mechaber is like the Rambam. What? The bishul kedera lechude, if you cook it alone in meat, without meat, you cook the kachal alone in a pot, af below kriya, it'll be permitted. But dat ha-Mechaber says no. If even by itself, it's going to be asur. V'ofen plug tatam mivuar b'rishonim, and the point of their argument is explain the rishonim. Data mechaber de bliat basar kachal michal bo o chal bo mibasar hakachal lo asru. It doesn't forbid when it's from the kachal. Mishum basar b'chalav, rak b'bishul im basar acher. chalbo bolea tam mibasar acher. When it's other meat, then it's forbidden. But the data Rama is different. The dafka calls man shelo piresh chalav lo asr. As long as the chalav it didn't come out of the kachal, calls man shelo piresh chalbo lo asur. Aval bepiresh chalav hare hi chalav da'alma. Then it's like any other milk, and it should be forbidden. Umishum hachi bebishul af below basar asur. And that's why even when you cook it, so now he's explaining, why does the Ramah hold strictly? Because he says that when the milk comes out of the kachal, it's milk. And now you're cooking it in meat. So it's basar b'chalav. Umishum hachi bebishul af below basar acher asur. HaKachal. Mechalav sheyatzah from its own chalav, because the chalav changed at the minute it came out. When it came out, it's now separated, and so it forbids. Ve'im ken nire l'shitat mechaber delo asru bliat basar delo asru bliat basar hakachal mechalbo. So according to the mechaber, lo asru bliat basar hakachal mechalbo. The meat of the kachal does not get forbidden by its own milk. Because v'im ken im bishlu im basar acher after lekeshishim, even when there's not 60, ubala chalbo mi basar acher v'nesar chalav mishum basar b'chalav mikol makom ma shebalua achar kach habasar ma shebolea achar kach habasar hakachal michalbo eina iser mishum shehu basar ubolea michalbo elahu kamo yerek habolea mechatichot basar b'chalav. Wait a second. I think it's a little bit late. I think we're gonna have to stop. But at the end, he's gonna say whatever. All right, well, maybe another time we'll talk about this. But he basically says that at the end that that even if it's milk and meat, it's like yerek, because once the milk and meat met, it's now like shar surim, and therefore it's just like a yerek that became usser, and it's not usser because of milk and meat anymore. Was milk and meat, but now it's like shar isurim. Anyway, I should leave this here. It's too late now. But all right, we'll stop here. Maybe we'll discuss it in the Chazarash here. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.